Okay. Hi, Jamie. Thank you so much for joining me today to interview for the Bull City International Film Festival.
Thanks. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
Great. I'll introduce myself. I'm Sabrina Hofkin, and again, I'm with the Bull City International Film Festival. I'm volunteering with them. And this year, the film festival is going to be virtual March 4th through the 7th, and you can check out the website for any details. And it's based in Durham, North Carolina. And today I have with me Jamie Campbell, and he wrote a fantastic script called Me Thor. And it's told from the eyes of a 12-year-old boy, Julian, and
That's right.
him and his mother, and about their situation. And it's a great script. And although it could be sort of a dark and serious script or have that tone, there are very many comedic moments in it which captured my heart, and I thought it was a really, really great script. So do you want to just give us some tell us about your inspiration for writing it, and all that, how you became a screenwriter?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I started my career as an actor, and then I became an improviser and a stand-up comedian. And
Wow.
I tour all over the United States as a stand-up. Then when the pandemic hit, I was left with nothing to do.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, so
Oh, wow.
basically, I had a full slate of touring shows set up, and they all canceled within a couple of days of each other. And then nothing new was opening up. I mean, it's a similar experience to so many people during the
Yeah.
pandemic. And I basically had a choice that I could sit and wallow in depression, or I could take advantage of this downtime and learn something new. So I started taking a few different screenwriting courses, and I had a story. The story of Call Me Thor is actually based on my own life. I was a
Hmm.
12-year-old boy, and my mother and I went on the run across the country, lived under assumed names, in hiding from police and private investigators for about six
Wow.
months. Uh,
Wow.
the story itself is a fictionalized version, though, of what happened to me. There, are definitely some moments where I said, "Oh, what would have been an ideal thing? What are some things that I wish I had done?" And what would be a more exciting version of the father character, and the boyfriend character kind of became an amalgamation of different men that my mom had dated, and then once I freed myself from having to tell my story and allowed myself to tell this fictional story that was just inspired by the events of my life, then it allowed me to go on this adventure. Um, Julian loves heavy metal music. As that kid, heavy metal music was my escape during a
Oh.
difficult childhood.
Uh,
And so I wanted to incorporate that. And the best friend that he has at the beginning of the screenplay is basically uh, a version of my best friend in that era of my life. We were two kids that dreamed about starting our own heavy metal band and had no idea how to play a single instrument, but we had these dreams in our heads. We were very much like the Oklahoma version of Bill and Ted.
oh,
If
yeah. Uh-huh.
in those, and so yeah, so I took these true life elements and then freed myself from having to make them my story, and
Mhm.
allowed Julian and Linda, the character that is his mother, to go on their own journey, and just kind of let my imagination take them from this realistic point to wherever it felt like those characters wanted to go.
Yeah, I love the road trip story side of it and the people they meet on the way, like Puss, the guitar player that he meets on the bus, and the people who help them along the way at the shelters. And yeah, I thought, and I have three boys myself, so I really connected with the story from a mom and Julian's relationship, and how they looked out for each other and they were there for each other. And I don't know, that part of the story I really, really drew me in from the very beginning. So yeah, I thought the strip was just great. So
Thanks.
yeah, and since you have a background in comedy, there were just so many funny moments in it as well that weren't, because like I said, it could be really serious, but but it also has these funny moments built into it, so it makes you laugh, and so I think it would appeal to a lot of people because of that as well. So yes.
Thanks. I feel like that naturally had to come out because no matter what's going on, I mean, in the worst of human conditions, we have to find a way to laugh because otherwise we're not going to make it through.
Yeah.
And so no matter how bad your situation is, no matter how bad my situation was, shall I say, growing up, we always found ways to laugh in the middle of that darkness. And it always brightened it up just a little bit and gave a little bit of hope.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's definitely reflected in the script. I wanted to ask you about, so yes, you wanted to be a heavy metal guitar player as well.
Yes.
As a kid. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to be a lead singer, really, but it just made more sense for this kid to have this idea of a guitar in his hands that he could learn rather than just have him kind of humming or singing. So to me, and also I think the guitar, the electric guitar shaped like a flying V is such an iconic image for heavy metal. So it made sense to make Julian more interested in guitar.
And he does learn how to play guitar from one of the people at the shelter teaches him. And then it comes full circle at the end. He gets back together with his friend and they make the band at the end. And don't they, when he comes back to Oklahoma City?
Yeah, he comes back, spoiler alert, at the very end of the film. You know, he's gone on and lived this life where he basically gave up what he wanted, which was to be with his mother. Yeah. But in order for her to not have to go to jail after showing a custody battle and running across the country with him, he sacrifices his own needs and his own desires and says, okay, and goes to live with his father. But then when he becomes an adult, he goes back to reunite with his mom. And then when he's in college there, the best friend that he had not seen since he stood him up on Halloween happens to be there in a band that is auditioning guitar players, and he walks in.
Yeah, that's nice. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your writing process. Now, when you sit down and you have an idea and you're thinking about your characters and your plot, do you do an outline, like with your structure? You have your 3 acts. Do you think about your plot points, you know, your setup, inciting an incident, your plot point 1, etc., and fill in beats to each of your plot points? Or do you just start writing? I mean, did you know what was going to happen to Julian at the end when you started writing? Or do you
actually, in the first probably 5 versions of this script, Julian and Ted never saw each other again.
Oh, wow.
Because in real life, I never saw that version of a friend again. I'm going back to Oklahoma for another film festival next month, and I found that friend on Facebook.
Ooh, awesome.
So my Ted, like I just found him, and so I'm gonna probably go see him. And legit, Halloween was the last time that I saw him. Was Halloween when I was a kid there in middle school. So that kind of reflects the movie a little bit. But yeah, in the early versions, I didn't have their reunion because that's not what happened in my life. And a lot of people were giving me the feedback like, oh, it would have been so satisfying. We really fell in love with this Ted character. We wanted to see them get back together. You know, he has this musical dream. And for me, I would argue back like, well, I ended up not being in a heavy metal band, but that musical dream is what got me through those hard times. Mm-hmm. And it's okay if it didn't come true because it's still something that is a big part of my childhood. And, you know, I didn't get that satisfying ending, so you're not going to. But eventually I gave in because everybody wanted to see that. And I was like, well, it's not me. It's this other story. So why not give people what they want? And I had a lot of fun writing that ending scene. But to answer your question about my process, and I feel like I'm still a fairly new screenwriter. I've written 3 features and a couple of pilots, and this is the only one that I feel like is in that polished, I'm really proud of it state. This, and then I've got another short that's starting to to get some accolades. But so far, what seems to really work for me is an early brainstorming process where I just write down every image, every scene, everything that comes to me, and just kind of live with the idea of this story. And then I like to sit down and I try to write the details of kind of the major characters. And I try to write characters that I want to hang out with, people that I would like to know, because it's a movie. And I think for me, I love creating something that my imagination can take me to that my life wouldn't. So creating characters that I would really like to be around, or that make me feel something is important to me. And then trying to figure out what their story was, what led them to that point in their life. And then I like to basically do kind of a written interview where I start to get to speak in their voice.
Yeah.
And I'm an improviser. So I trained at the Second City, and then have performed in Chicago and kind of all over the country. Right now in Kansas City, where I'm based out of, I improvise a lot, which is unscripted theater. And so I like to really step in to those characters and kind of improvise as them. And once I feel like I've got their voice, then I try to figure out the character arc. What was the thing that happened in the past that leads them to have this need and this desire that sends them on this journey, and how does it turn out? And once I know that for the main characters, then I sit down and I do a general beat sheet, where I just get the general idea of what's going to happen throughout. And then after that, if that feels like it's where it needs to be, then I'll do a more detailed, where it's almost a treatment, where I try to detail out each scene. And I try to look for the word therefore and try to make sure that can fit in between the scenes. So this happens, therefore this other thing happens, so that things are being propelled forward.
Kind of a cause and effect.
Yeah, I think that's important, that there's got to be something that changes. And I teach a lot of improv classes.
Oh, cool.
And when I have people creating a scene, I always tell them, whatever is going on in the scene, this needs to be an important moment in your characters' lives. Otherwise, we don't need to see it. And one of these characters needs to come out of the scene differently than they were when the scene began. If no one's changed, then the scene doesn't need to be there and it should be cut. And so I try to do all of that. And then I sit down and I start to script it out. And sometimes while I'm doing that, I'll discover, like, I just feel like we need to go in this other direction. And so all of that pre-writing is there, but it's also something that I can pivot away from if my heart is leading me in one direction or another. Okay,
that's great insight, especially with all your comedy experience and stuff. You really know people too, because you talk about them in your comedy routines, I'm sure too. And
absolutely.
And things. So that's great. I'm not sure how much time we have, but I wanted to ask you about really quick about your settings. Okay, you had Oklahoma City and then you had Albuquerque. Do you have any connection with those cities? I think you said you're from Oklahoma City, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was Edmond, Oklahoma. Oklahoma City is a city that Edmond is a suburb of.
Okay.
And it was just easier for me to write Oklahoma City in there. But my real story, those are the locations that those things occurred, kind of where that adventure led me to. And like, I remember taking a Greyhound bus and ending up in the Amarillo Greyhound station, just like in the story, and like seeing some weird things happening in the bathroom there, just like happens in the script. So those settings, those locations were taken just straight out of my life. I like to grab places that I've lived. Like I've got another screenplay that's out of Chicago. So if I've lived or visited a place, a lot of times I feel like a setting, even without being overbearing, can still be a real character.
Oh, great. Yeah. Characters, settings are definitely characters. Yeah, definitely. So, well, it's been wonderful talking to you. I don't want to go over the time limit, but is there anything else you want to add, or anything about, you were mentioning you're working on a short that's getting some accolades?
Yeah, it's called Dead Baby, which a real cheery script, just about someone that made a mistake years ago and is about to have a baby and is in love with someone, and it turns out that someone that they're in love with is not who they thought they were, someone from their past, and Yeah. So I've got someone in the UK that is actually interested in producing it right now, which is
Oh, that's
very
awesome.
exciting.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm just keep working, writing every day, and as a
Okay.
stand-up comedian, I'm working on a show that I'm going to be touring across the country next year.
Oh,
You
good.
can go
I
to
hope I
Jamie
get to
Campbell.
see you somewhere.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
JamieCampbellComedy.com. If anybody is out there looking for me, that's my primary site with all my social media links and all of that. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time to
Oh, you're
interview
welcome.
me, and everyone at Bull City International Film Festival. Thank you for reading my script. It really means so much to me that you guys enjoyed it.